Tanking for the first time can be ever so slightly intimidating. So, I prepared this swift guide so you know what to keep track of and what to avoid. When boiled down to the very basics, the role of a tank consists of three things: keeping enemy aggro, positioning enemies, and last but not least, defending yourself through the use of your many defensive cooldowns. Enemy aggro in FF14 is based on a value called enmity, which is indicated here and here. Whoever has the highest enmity will be the person the mob focuses. As long as you have your tank stance on, which increases your enmity generation on all skills, you will have no problem holding aggro so long as you're actively attacking mobs. Do note though that your tank stance will sometimes turn itself off upon entering a dungeon, so always check to make sure it's turned on. Grouping enemies is pretty simple. Just bundle them up as tightly as you can, and make sure they're in a spot your party can safely reach. You'll want to group them tightly so your party's AoE skills won't miss any enemies because they're too far away from the rest. Do note that some jobs have skills that leave lingering AoEs on the ground that you absolutely do not want to avoid. Here's a quick rundown of what they look like and what they do. When tanking singular enemies, you'll no longer be catering to your party's AoE rotations, but rather their single target. Ranged jobs are generally a bit more lax with where you position enemies, so long as you don't pull them out of their reach. Casters don't like that. Melee DPS, however, are ever so slightly trickier to tank for. Melees have skills in their rotations called positionals. These are skills they use often that are required to hit their target from either the rear or the flank. In order to accommodate this, you, the tank, are going to have to make sure that both the boss's flank and rear are safely accessible for your party. The rear and the flank meet right here. So, as long as you have this little spot reachable, your melee DPS will be able to perform optimally. And of course, your defensive cooldowns. This part is fairly simple. Since there isn't too much depth to defensive cooldowns in the earlier levels, all you need to do is make sure you use them whenever pulling a group of about 4 to 5 enemies or more. Do try to make use of all of them, but don't blow them all at the same time. Else you may find yourself surrounded by mobs without much of anything left to defend yourself. Remember, the more damage you mitigate, the less your healer has to heal, and thus the more damage they can deal. And while I've said it before, competent healers can put out a lot of damage, especially in AoE pulls. And on the subject of healers, after you've gotten comfortable with tanking, consider asking your healers if they can handle large pulls. If you get the go-ahead, that pretty much means pop sprint and pull as many mobs as you think you can handle. In many dungeons, especially some of the later ones, it's very easy to pull mobs from wall to wall, as long as you know what you're doing. There's plenty more to tanking that I didn't touch on here, but as a first-timer's guide, I didn't want to overwhelm you with information. And so, that concludes everything I have here for you today. Any and all feedback is much appreciated, and I do so hope these tips help you out. Farewell.